there were letters that were sent to a bunch of federal employees to notify them that they have been fired from different agencies. And these letters from Elon Musk and Trump and DOGE essentially cite poor work performance as a reason for termination in many of these firings. And that's basically targeting this classification of workers in the federal workforce that go as probationary workers. Now, they're not on probation. They're not doing anything wrong. It just is like a classification in the federal government that involves the amount of time that you've been working there. And sometimes if you move from different agencies, you will be classified as probationary. So you have probationary status typically if you are somebody who's worked for the federal government for less than 2 years before you move to a more protected status where you receive full civil service protections. But you can also be probationary temporarily, which has happened on occasion with some of these fired workers, if you're moving in between agencies. So these are the folks who are being targeted right now by these cuts by Elon Musk. And at things like the FAA and the Department of Transportation, some of these employees are being told that they're being fired for poor performance. But the managers are leaking to the press. No. Most of these employees have been shown, and we have it documented based on their performance reviews, as being essentially exceptional performers by their superiors. But this is something that Elon Musk did with the Twitter layoffs, which is that he wants to fire them for poor performance so the federal government doesn't have to pay their full benefits. And that offer for severance or whatever is also a scam because it doesn't essentially guarantee the full payout, if I'm not mistaken, Bradley, right? That's the case with some of those severance packages. It's a little bit unclear. We don't need to look it up right now, but just putting that caveat in. And the reality is that these are real people, millions of federal workers who, many of whom who have dedicated their lives to making this world a better place. Sam interviewed that NLRB person who said it was her life's dream. She got her master's in this particular field, invested, and could be subjected to the whims of a billionaire who doesn't like the fact that we have labor protections in this country. But these are some of the stories. If you could just scroll down, Bradley, to the bottom where it says above fully successful, that part. And I just want to credit the Washington Post, in particular my buddy Jeff Stein, who has really been, I guess this isn't Jeff, but another Washington Post piece. This is by Hannah Nathanson, Lisa Ryan, and Emily Davies. But Jeff's been doing great work as well.
Yeah, the colleagues of Jeff.
Colleagues of Jeff. Sorry to Jeff, you can get credit too. So they're publishing here some of the stories of the people that have been fired. And I just wanted to read this to people because, again, they're real human beings. One transportation department worker found out he was fired on Valentine's Day just after putting his children to bed as he sat down to watch a movie with his wife. An agriculture employee discovered he was terminated the morning after attending an ex-partner's funeral. A Natural Resource Conservation Service employee was cut months after the government paid $20,000 to relocate his family to North Dakota. Others targeted in the wave of firings fixated on the emails explaining why, struggling to understand. Employees who were told their performance was at issue said they had earned evaluations reviewed by the Post that offered evidence of their good work. Above fully successful, read a November assessment of a Fire General Services Administration worker. An outstanding year, consistently exceeding expectations, stated a review for a former NIH employee whose manager credited her for mastering a steep learning curve and becoming an invaluable asset. One well-rated Veterans Affairs staffer texted her boss to complain after she was fired. In text messages obtained by the Post, he replied, "It states it's due to your performance, which is not true. Your performance has nothing to do with this." Others were stunned to find themselves included in the probationary category, including a federal nurse with more than 5 years of government employment who recently moved under military orders with her spouse and had to switch agencies as a result, now out of a job. So that's what I was referring to there as one of the kind of flaws here, where she did serve for over the 2-year period to get past being probationary, but she ended up still getting fired because she had to switch agencies. A veteran of the National Park Service who has worked at parks including Yosemite, Shenandoah, and the Great Smoky Mountains, last year left a permanent position to accept a promotion in a new park. There she was told she'd have to serve 1 year of probation. On Valentine's Day, she was fired for performance and ending a quarter century of service. It is very brutal, she said, especially after working and dedicating most of my life to the NPS. So those are two examples there, and I want to get to the final one that broke my heart in a second, of people who have gone past that 2-year probationary period, but because they had to switch over agencies, or this person who worked for nearly 25 years in the National Park Service was told she'd receive a promotion, but she just had to serve 1 year as a technicality in that period, ended up getting fired because, the DOGE groypers put it into an algorithm and she was classified as probationary. So, same as the nurse who has a military spouse who had to be temporarily probationary because she switched agencies. Now, here's the one at the end that they ended this article with. Sorry for construction noise out there, folks, if you're hearing that. Luke Graziani, a disabled Army veteran, was 5 weeks from completing his probation year on Friday when he logged into his work computer at the Bronx Veterans Affairs Hospital. Waiting on the screen was a boilerplate termination email citing performance concerns. Graziani printed out the message and took it to his boss, who was shocked, and promised to submit a request for exemption. "Your critical staff," Graziani recalled his boss saying. "We're going to try." Graziani, who is 45 and has 4 children, had believed until this weekend that his veteran status would protect his job. He served 20 years in the Army, first as a supply specialist and then in public affairs, deploying for 2 tours in Iraq and another 2 in Afghanistan before retiring in 2023. In the hour,
J.D. Vance did.
Yeah, but apparently similar actually time as Tim Walz, who just came up, that was accused of stolen valor by J.D. Vance and co. In the hours after his termination, Graziani tried to figure out what to do. Then he thought of Douglas A. Collins, a newly appointed Veteran Affairs Secretary, who vowed in his confirmation hearing that he will not stop until we succeed on behalf of the men and women who have worn the uniform. Graziani sat down and composed a letter. "You see, I am a veteran too, just like you, Secretary Collins. I spent those same hot nights in Iraq, waiting for the all clear after an incoming round set off the alert system, praying that there wouldn't be another," he wrote. Then he asked for his job back. "This can't be how my service to my country ends." As of Monday, Collins had not replied. So, that's that. Another effect of the cuts was this USAID thing. There were many U.S. personnel overseas when they just decided to cut it off, including this woman and her husband, who is now suing the Trump administration over this, and I think under a pseudonym, so we don't have their full name. It's as, the Jane Doe or ex-Joe, et cetera. So this is Kyle Cheney of Politico. We could just go to his summary. Another medical horror story in a court affidavit from a USAID employee stationed overseas says his pregnant wife was not medically evacuated, for emergency health care because of directives from Washington. Took intervention of a U.S. senator to reverse, but it was too late. Now, it seems like the pregnancy was okay, but she needed to be medically evacuated, and she could not. Cheney continues in the second part of this thread. The employee, identified only as Terry Doe, says he's been in touch with 25 other pregnant Foreign Service officers who are fearful their care will be cut off if the agency closes down completely on March 8th. So there you have it, folks.
Relatedly, there's a Bloomberg article. Food head at FDA resigns, citing numerous job cuts and division. Now, this one's interesting to me because it goes at one of the core central brand propositions that got a lot of rubes to support this administration this time. Because the guy, Jim Jones, the head of the food division of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, who oversaw the agency's banning of the food dye Red No. 3 earlier this year, stepped down on Monday. So the entire point of the sort of Maha bullshit that, you know, people like Russell Brand and stuff are paid to pretend is real, because I do think that was a real part of the coalition that Trump added this time, was people who are upset at the type of garbage that capitalists pump into our food. Not really addressing that, turns out. Get rid of the guy who actually was addressing these things, because who cares? And there's a piece here, if you can just pull up this Carl Bayer piece, which I think is important, because I think some people on the left are, for some reason, persuaded by writers like Leighton Woodhouse at Compact Magazine, who's sort of like a Timu Michael Schellenberger.
Curious who you're referring to.
He had this article. So Carl's, go up to the top of Carl's. Carl's is, no federal workers are not, quote, elites. I regret to inform you that Compact Magazine is at it again. I would go check out carlbayer.com, because he responds to Compact Magazine's assertion that these are somehow elite. When I would say the hacks like Leighton Woodhouse and Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi and all these sort of like for-hire mercenary hacks, you're more of the elites than these people who work in whatever fucking administration that they were employed at.
You mean the 30,000 federal workers in Kansas City, the city's largest employer, are not as economic elite as Matt Iglesias, whose pieces are regularly read by people in the Biden administration?
Yeah, I think, and I know a lot of people aren't persuaded by this sort of stuff, but there are a few people that seem to think that these sort of losers have a point, and no, they're charlatans.
Hey folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.